All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Wireheads podcast. This is another little special edition for all of you. So this one, if you are listening to this on Spotify or watching this on YouTube, very good. This is the only version of this that exists. This was not done live. We are here today with Jay Gray of Artel Saurian Games, the line manager for Cyberpunk Red, and as of a few weeks ago here, the proud announcer that we've now very much gone to print on the CEMK, which is why we're all sitting here today, so we could have a little conversation about the upcoming product and some of the things we're all excited about related to that. So Jay, thank you again for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Glad to talk about the Cyberpunk Edgerunners Mission Kit.
Yeah, I know it's been a really long time coming for you guys. I know that there was a lot of excitement about it the last, couple conventions here that y'all have been at. So I was first to kind of start us off here. I know that obviously the CEMK is a collaboration between Artel Saurian Games, Studio Trigger, and CD Projekt Red. And because of the fact that the anime is on it, also Netflix. So given that this first question might have some somewhat obvious answers, but I wanted to get your take on this. When you were working on the product, with all of those moving parts, what was kind of the greatest challenge getting things put together, I guess? Because it's a lot of moving parts if ever I had to see that.
The biggest challenge for every project is organization. It always is keeping track of everything. Excuse me one moment.
No, you're good.
Keeping track of everything, making sure that you have all the little boxes checked off. There's so many small steps to a project like this, and you have to make sure everything gets done. So that was honestly the biggest challenge, was just keeping it moving, making sure you hit all the parts. For us, for me, as well as for the rest of the team, everybody had to do the parts they needed to do. Lisa needed to make sure there were dice, make sure the dice were correct. There was a lot of back and forth because dice makers use color codes based on the kind of plastic they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're using for making the dice, whereas CDPR, being a video game studio, works mostly in RGB, and we work mostly in CMYK when we're printing. And so there was a couple of weeks of just figuring out, well, what does this color translate into this color, because it's very important to get the yellows and the greens that are the signature colors of Cyberpunk and Edgerunners respectively done correctly in dice form. And that was it's a small thing, it's a minor thing, but it's so important at the same time, and it took a lot of effort. That's one example. There's always a lot of little things, like InDesign and Illustrator don't always agree that the same CMYK values end up with the same output, and so you have to be careful with that, because if you're using having two colors, what should be the same color from an Illustrator file placed into an InDesign file. For those who don't know, Illustrator is a vector graphics program. InDesign is a page layout program. And so, for example, on this, which is backwards, this right here, this little bit jagged bit at the end they call the razor, is only that large.
Right.
So originally we had a second box here, only it was interpreting the yellow here is slightly different from the yellow here. And so I had to go back and make a new graphic with the razor that just basically made one large graphic. It's a small thing, and honestly, most people wouldn't have noticed it. But luckily, when our printer did proofs, they did.
I because I studied a lot of that in college. Like, you're speaking my language right now, and I'm like, I'm so glad to hear that language, just because I'm like, yeah, that is some of the hardest stuff, I think, is like color accuracy and the really minute elements of some of that print design is incredibly challenging.
Yeah, there's a ton of small things for every time you do something, you have to look for what are called waterfall changes, which is when you make one change, it changes multiple things, or in theory, it should change multiple things down the line. Sometimes it's a matter of, oh, we changed this term. We have to make sure that every use of the term has changed as well throughout. In this case, multiple books, because there's 3 booklets in the set as opposed to one large book. I can't just do a find. And you never do a find replace, because if you're not exactly specifically find replace, you're going to end up changing, and you're changing the word 1 to the word 2, you'll have any twos. Any two can do this.
Yeah.
It has happened. So we call those copy paste errors. So you'll have those occasionally. You'll have little things like I added the inside going to print. The print's on my mind because that's the last thing I really did.
Sure.
Going to print. The cover files are separate from the interior files for the booklets. So, but when you make a digital version, your cover's in there. So what happens is we go back to the interior and we add the cover as a new page at the beginning. Then we have to repaginate to make sure that the first page still functions as the first page. Because as far as the file is concerned, if you don't do that, the first page is the cover page. Then you have to go through, because sometimes, but not always, InDesign moves things, because for a split second, all your left pages are on the right and all your right pages are on the left.
Right.
So small things. So the end result is, the hardest thing about this project was keeping track of all the tiny things, all the little things, all the small moving gears that without it wouldn't work. It's like putting together a watch. All the parts are very tiny, and if you don't do it exactly right, your watch is going to break eventually.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and I know when you had discussed it at conventions, or even when you and I had kind of talked at conventions about, some of those things, it sounded like a lot of the little things were the things that were especially paid attention to on this product. Not that they aren't on your others as well, but this one in particular, I know both you and Rob had expressed quite frequently, like, we want to make sure we get this absolutely right, and that there is absolutely nothing that kind of slips our notice in the minutiae here. We want this to be as good as we can make it before it goes to print.
And it's for a like this, where you have multiple components, because it's made up of lots of things. There's 3 booklets. There's the token sheet. There's the character sheets. There are the dice. There's the intro sheet. There are the maps, and the box itself. Those are all components. And normally in a book, it's the interior, it's the cover, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So in this, it's a little tougher, because you never know when a small change might need to carry over, not just to one file, but to 30.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense.
To springboard off the book production. By the way, hi, Diamond Dust here as well for Wireheads. The book, the meat and potatoes of it, from what we've seen, the page count alone, when Emmerron and I had taken a moment to look, this is going to be the longest adventure that you guys have produced amongst any of like the long beat adventures that you've done, like Tales of the Red, or even The Incident for the matter. And was this an intentional choice, or is this more the result of needing to tie every potential path players could take into that book, which would be what's the jacket?
There's a combination of factors. First, we had 40 pages to fill, and so we knew we roughed out the page counts of the books when we began. It was every book was going to be between 36 and 48 pages. When you're printing, you do printing in groups of 8. It's because they print the pages on big pieces of paper, then fold them down, and 8 pieces of paper kind of go on it. That's a very, very major simplification of the process. But when you're doing 8.5 by 11 books, it's basically they do 8 pages per big sheet, and then they get cut and folded and spindled and mutilated. So we call them signatures of 8. And so either we're going to go down to 32, 40 or 48. Those are the signatures. So we knew we were going to hit around 40. So there was that. What we're going to do with that 40 was all a question. So technically speaking, you are correct. In terms of page count, it is slightly longer than the longest combination adventure, the 2 back adventures, Bathe in Red, One Red Night in Tales of the Red Street Stories. However, I don't know that you can say it's longer because of a couple things. One, the jacket has things that no other adventure we published before has. For example, at the beginning of every beat, we have a paragraph on purpose and tone, which is so we designed this for new GMs. We designed this assuming that a number of people who pick this up will have never run a game before, any game in any system. So we designed it for them. And so we start every beat with a purpose and tone. It says things like, this tone is supposed to be tense, so keep the pace up. Or this is a time to explore, that Night City is, a place where people live no matter what happens. Or, this is a point where you can stop and breathe. So we have a purpose and tone paragraph in each one. And at the end of many of them, not all of them, we have a behind the scenes paragraph or 2, which is very simply, GM, here's what happened. Your players are investigating and they learned this. Here's the additional information to help it make sense for you. Your players learned this, and the reason this happened is because of this. So you have a better concept of what occurred. So that's there. And that's not superfluous information, but extra information that other adventures don't have. And it can help run the adventure, but it doesn't translate into gameplay. So that's part of it.
Okay.
That's
So
now-
it's very much not just let alone a starter kit for the players, but this is GM's first adventure into the system.
Yeah, it's designed for that. Plus, there are multiple pop-out windows. They're very similar. They're basically just like sidebars directly in the text that say things like, you don't have time to make every NPC a full character, but if you give every NPC a quirk, they feel more real. Or this should be a tense fight, and if it's going a little too smoothly, throw in some, have some extra people come in here. So there are also GM tips scattered throughout. So the end result being is in page count, you can't really say, oh, this is longer than the others. Sure. In playtesting, we found it ran between 6 to 10 hours, depending on how new people were to the system, and so how much of a learning curve there was, as well as how, some people role play and goof around, or they role play seriously, and there's a lot of extra action happening in the role play sections. Some people go straight, we do the thing, we finish the thing, we go on to the next thing. So it'll run you 2 sessions, no matter how unless you're running a really long session. It'll run you about 2 sessions, no matter how you slice it. It could run you 3, depending on your group. And so that there is that. And there's also little things like there are several places where we say, here's a great place to put someone from your character's life path in. Like if your characters have an enemy, here's a good place to put it. If they have a friend, here's a good place to add that friend in. So there's a lot of little extras in there that Street Stories didn't have, that if they had, they would have been a longer page count.
Okay.
Sure. So a lot of it is like you're describing, it sounds like, because that's such a fascinating thing too, because it's not something that I have had to think about for quite a while, because I've had a lot of time practicing my GM skills in sense. So it sounds like a lot of that then is to help the GM build a mental image when they don't have experience or practice doing that, to conceptualize the world around the players. That's incredibly cool. Okay.
Yeah. Every combat has a map, has a full map that'll come in the box that you can unfold and put on the table. But also in the booklet, it has a small map, and the map has tokens on it. It says your players start here, your enemies are all here, are the starting positions for the enemies. so that the GMs can just lay it out just like they see it in the map, with the caveat that the way we do enemies requires it's usually X number of enemies per edge runner, or one enemy per X number of edge runners. So there's a little disclaimer on every map that says you may need more. Your map may have fewer or more enemies than are shown here, but it gives them enough of an idea that they know what to do.
So, I guess just as a quick side tangent, when it came to the whole organization thing, and I think Emmerron and I both being fans of battle maps, who did the battle maps for CEMK? Was it in-house?
All the maps. Yeah, there are 8 maps. There are 4 11 by 17 sheets in the box, double-sided. 6 of the maps were done by Low Key Battle Maps, Matt Henderson. They are the official map makers for Cyberpunk Red. So if you're familiar with the giant book of Cyberpunk Battle Mats, that's Low Key. They're all done by them, all especially for this product. So they're really cool. And one of the maps is a blank grid, just white with a grid on it, because that's always useful. Also, there is one scene that's basically there's one scene that basically in the thing in the kit in the adventure doesn't require a specific map. It just requires you to keep track of squares, and so that's useful for that. And then there is one page that is a 11 by 17 map of Night City, with each district labeled and all the street names on it. But you're not going to be able to read anything but the highway names because they're so small. And it's a beautiful map though, and it's the kind of thing you'll put up on your wall when you're done with it.
That's really cool. So is that on its own then, or is that I assume is tied to one of the maps then?
It's on the back of the blank grid map.
Okay.
It's at least it's on the map that if you happen to put it on your wall, you'll miss the other side the least. Sure.
Okay. Or at the bare minimum, it's easiest, I would argue, then to photocopy or something if you wanted to just retain a blank gridded map for your own use. Yeah, that's cool.
The scene will work just as well as if you get a chessboard.
Sure. Sure. That's a good point. So this is obviously been built repeatedly, and Rob has made a very good job in the Discord of making sure that everyone understands, like, this is a new starter product for Cyberpunk Red as a whole. Being that this is a bit of a different setting, obviously, than the time of the Red, because we're now kind of out of the scarcity economy. We're out of this reconstruction period for the city. So with that in mind, obviously, we had the Jumpstart kit at one point, but there was a earlier version of the rules than what were released in the core rulebook. So that in mind, are there even tentative plans potentially for the future to go back and have any kind of additional starter products that launch players in at the time of the Red, or are at the moment is this just kind of like the plan is just this for now and we're going to leave it there for a while at the bare minimum?
We are looking at because the Jumpstart kit is out of print physically, so we are looking at a rejigger of it, a 2.0 Jumpstart kit down the line. It is a long-term goal that we haven't decided on yet, because we have this starter box, we have Mission Kit coming out next month. We have and then we have the starter box for Shadowscar, which is the new RPG from Cody Pondsmith, coming out at Gen Con.
Oh, so cool.
I'm not spoiling. He has said this multiple times to multiple people, so it's not this is not new information, though. If you
first time I heard it, though, I live under a rock.
Yeah. We're looking at having it out at Gen Con, knock on wood. But between the two, because we do as much printing in the US as possible, or at least in Canada, in North America, so we don't have to do overseas shipping whenever we don't have to.
Sure.
There are only so many printers capable of handling projects like that, so we kind of line them up. And so I don't know when we'll get to a new Jumpstart kit, and especially since this one is out, the two may struggle against each other, especially at first. So we are probably not going to do one this year. We may look at it next year.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know right now the biggest pain point for even, obviously we do have the conversion guide available for running the adventures out of there, but I know that that there is a certain degree, I won't call it fear, but there's a certain level of anticipation that 2077 setting, simply because it is known by more people from outside the TTRPG space, will be the more popular setting, and that only having one starter product that only uses that setting could cause it to overshadow the time of the red. It's not something I personally agree with, but I am kind of curious if you have any thoughts on that topic as well as we kind of bring that up.
So there's two thoughts to that. First of all, the one product we have which has sold more than any other product in the Cyberpunk line is Cyberpunk Red Easy Mode, because it's free on drive-thru. Is not changing. We're not putting out a new easy mode for now, at least for specifically for a 2077 era book. We may in the future, I don't know, but we are for now. The other thing is right now our plan, we have fairly intense plans for Cyberpunk Red, and since we have there's more to do with it. Mm-hmm. There's more we can do with it. There's more control we have over what we can present. We're not looking to replace Red with 2077, and there will be more Red content than 2070 era content, no matter what we do. It's just the nature of the beast. That's the part of the timeline we can make things up for, and therefore it's a part of the timeline it's easier for us to make books. That said, play in 45, play in 77, play in 2020 if you like, play in 2013 if that's really your jam, play in 2050. Do your thing, enjoy it. I encourage you to do
that. I'm excited to explore the 2050s. I know in my mind space, because I think that's got a little bit of the best of both worlds. If I understand the timeline from the bit we do have already, but no, I'm deeply excited to do all of that exploration. I think it's very exciting. That's probably, knowing we have a bit of a timeline to work off of now, with hopefully some new information that we don't already have from the existing world book for 77, and also obviously we know a little lore from in the game itself. We have little bits and pieces that we pick up from things like All About Agents, that we talked about last time with you. So I'm deeply excited to see exactly how all that shapes out and explore that in my game and at my table. But yeah.
I suppose just something that did catch me off guard yesterday. Well, I caught both of us off guard. Like Emmerron was like spamming my inbox about it.
I was.
I was in the middle of spending some time with one of my other folks. But with the announcement here yesterday, this kit is going to be put on pre-order sometime next week. Is what it sounds like.
That's what Rob said.
That's what Rob said.
What led to our Talosorian Games making this choice to have this as a first-time pre-order?
There's a couple of reasons. The big one is a lot of people asked for it, so we said, okay, let's give it a try. Okay. In the past, we haven't liked to do pre-orders because pre-orders can break. Pre-orders can go wrong. And we want to be careful. But we decided to try it because a lot of people asked for it. Also because we are not quite sure yet what the demand for this product will be. And obviously it's going to be high, but the question is how high. Mm-hmm. And our pre-orders will give us a better idea of when we need to think about ordering a new print run of it. It'll give us more information ahead of time. And in this field, a few weeks even of information, of data, can be a great point to let us know, especially since we've got Gen Con coming up. We're not going to run out of this before Gen Con. I'm 99.9% certain, so that's not a problem. But after Gen Con, the time around Gen Con, we lose like a month of time, work time around Gen Con. You lose the week going up, you lose the week of Gen Con, the week afterwards. You lose half a week here and there leading up to it because you're working on setting up for Gen Con. And so we want to, get ahead of the game. That's the only reason why. And so this is an experiment to see how well it works. We may do it again in the future. We may not. It all really depends on, does this work? Is it technically feasible? Is it a mess? Does it give us good data? Does it do something good? Because pre-orders can be predatory, and we don't want that. But they can also be, someone saying, hey, if I pre-order, I don't have to worry about, holding aside money until later. I can order it now and just be sure I have it. I'll say this. I do not anticipate there being a problem if you don't pre-order it. I don't anticipate there being a problem with picking it up on launch day. And even on the off chance that somehow we pre-order through through our stock, distributors and retailers are pre-ordering too. So it should still work through the distribution chain. So what I'm saying is pre-orders are neat, but we're not trying to build a false sense of limited scarcity. So don't worry about that. Unlimited availability. We're not trying to create scarcity. We're just trying to say, people have asked for it, so we're giving it to you because you're excited. That's cool. And we're using it as a metric to see, get a better idea of print run scheduling. But it is not a order now or you won't get it kind of situation.
Yeah, it's not buy it while it's here, limited quantity stuff. Yeah.
And, as someone where, I live paycheck to paycheck, it's a little bit easier for me, like when I can see, like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. Great. At least I know I can pay for it and have that squared away now. So that way, if an emergency comes up down the road, that doesn't happen. Will this also apply to drive-thru?
One second. I want to do a disclaimer. Sorry. On the very off chance that somehow we sell through our entire print run and pre-orders, it's not going to happen. But on the off, small 0.0001% chance says, please do not come to us and say, Jay said I wouldn't have any problem getting it on launch day.
It could happen.
Fair, yeah.
No.
It's not going to
be reasonable.
Yes, but yes, but I don't anticipate it happen. It's never happened. We have never gone through. We have gone through in a month, half a print run, on certain occasions. But we've never gone through an entire print run in a few weeks.
And is it, when you say that I assume is at like product launch, not like down the road kind of thing, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. For example, when the first season of Witcher came out, we had roughly half a print run left of the Witcher Core rulebook. At that point, I think it was the third printing, and it came out, and a month later, we were out of Witcher Core, and that was really cool. That's unusual, and it's very unusual. But even then, A has been out for a while, but B, part of that was distribution. Distribution was aware of it again, and so distribution said, "Oh, this is selling. Let's get a bunch in our warehouse." And we work with like 6 or 7 6, 7, 8, 9 distributors. So, but I don't anticipate a problem. We made this with that in mind. Individual orders, I don't anticipate running out of.
Beautiful.
All right.
Okay, sorry. And you're asking about drive-through.
Like, will we be able to have that like set to once the day comes, it's ready to go in our library?
Yes. Yeah, we will. We will be doing pre-orders on drive-through as well. You'll be able to go. You'll be able to buy it on drive-through, and then that day the day it launches, you'll be able to download your files.
Thank you.
That's
so yeah. Up until then, you'll own a single PDF that says something like "Thank you for buying this." You'll get it later, and then on launch day, that PDF will be gone, and all the files for the product will be there.
I appreciate that.
That's awesome. So then, to move into some of the contents that we have heard about between the press release and some of the teasers that have been done up to now for what is in the kit. I want to talk about some of the various gear that we know is obviously going to make an appearance. We've heard, the trifecta, or I guess there are 4 of them technically, but there's at the very least a trifecta of things that we heard about in the press release that are all of kind of V's main weapons in 77, those being Mantis Blades, the Monowire, and the Gorilla Arms. There it is. So with
one more, you're missing one.
Well, the projectile launch system is one. I did not see that one in the press release, if I recall, but
whoops! I should have said anything.
Yeah.
No. Yes, all 4 of the main cyber weapon builds you can build with V are in this are in the Edgerunner Mission Kit. The Monowire is in there. It will be the Monowires in there. The Gorilla Arms are in there. The Mantis Blades are in there, as well as projectile launch systems. The projectile launch system, honestly, to me, is the least interesting of the 4. It's cool, but it's really just it's a variable. It's basically, it can be a rocket launcher or a grenade launcher depending on what you load it with.
It's pop-up grenade launcher's older brother or bigger brother is what it is.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pop-up grenade launcher with 1 extra bonus. They're all something essentially with 1 extra bonus, with an extra ability. The Mantis Blades are pop-up melee weapons with some cool things if you happen to have 2 Mantis Blades. The Gorilla Arms are
big knucks
with some cool extras if you happen to have 2 of them. 2 arms.
Okay.
1 in each arm. The Monowire is a slice and dice with some cool bonuses to what it can do. They're each very neat. All 4 of them are very cool. Quite honestly, once they're out there, I don't expect anyone to take big knucks or Monowires or simple pop-up melee weapons unless they got a very specific concept for it, or pop-up grenade launchers again, unless they need something cheaper at care gen or with less humanity loss. But these are like those with some extras. So they're all Pokemon Evolved style evolutions of their base level cyberware from Red.
In this cyberware, that's going to be like on the other side of the Metal Wars is like where that belongs, right?
in theory, yes. This is all 2070 stuff, but there is a very specific thing that says, hey, you're allowed to put these in your Red game if you want, and if you don't want to say these are available for commercial sale, just find a tech who can invent them, because after all, someone had to.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Or it's going to be
fair.
a fixer rarity where it's just like,
yeah,
oh, you want these special ones.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you got the money for it, man.
Canonically speaking, a lot of them these things don't exist before the Unification War or the Metal Wars. The same name for 2 different names for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Canon is your table, man. Do what you want.
Right.
I'm not gonna stop you. I promise you, Mike Pondsmith is not going to break into your house with a katana and start slashing up your character sheets.
He's not sending the elite sniper team to your house.
Yeah,
that's just for the people who've signed NDAs. I promise. So to delve a little deeper into gear and things like that. So obviously we have those main 4 things, and I don't remember particularly if all of those made an appearance in Edgerunners. I know obviously things like the Monowire and the Gorilla Arms obviously do. But when deciding for some of the 2070s era gear, weapons, etc., that you do have in the product, were there particular criteria for like the things you wanted to put in now versus maybe waiting for the often talk about but technically not fully announced eventual 77 core rule book or core setting book that is kind of planned?
It's really simple. So we all, our Tales Learning Games, got together and we watched the anime together in one solid afternoon. First episode, last episode.
Oh.
And to give you an idea how it went, Mike's watching. He's like, "Oh wow, that's really cool." And I'm watching, like, "Wow, that's really amazing." James Hot.
James.
Thank you for telling on James. We'll make sure to harass him about that at Gen Con.
James, who is the for those of you who are listening to this in podcast form, I just pretend to write on a piece of paper while pretending to be James Hutt. Because that makes great radio, right?
It does.
No, James was the primary core designer on Mission Kit in terms of mechanics. And no, he sat down and then he went through the anime a second time, and he sat down and he said, "Okay, that gun is this gun is this gun is this." So everything we have in here shows up somewhere in the anime.
Okay.
We don't include anything or that doesn't show up in the anime in some form or another, including the mantis blades and the projectile launch system.
Okay.
They are in there.
Yeah.
They are in there. They're not necessarily big important moments. Like Lucy using her mono wire is pretty memorable. I think the mantis blades really they show up on some people and like in big fight scenes, and they're almost forgettable by this point. You're like, oh, they have mantis blades, and then you move on.
Right.
I believe David has a projectile launch system by the end.
Oh, that is true. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that is true. I was like, I was trying to think. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you really think about it, he also had a lot more at the end too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I mean, yeah, we won't get into that, but basically, yes.
Yeah.
Everything, all the new pieces of gear we introduce show up. Every gun is wielded by someone in the anime at some point. Every piece of cyberware is seen on screen, except for one is not seen, but its presence is felt because there is something that is entirely internal. It's not specifically referenced, but the net running system doesn't work without it.
Oh. Okay.
I'm very curious on what that is, unless that's like, because the only thing I could think of is a cyber deck. That's like that I could call to mind. Yeah.
You never see someone like slot a cyber deck, and yes, obviously we talk about the Neuroport mounted cyber decks. In fact, no one really talks about Neuroports, but you see their evidence all the time.
That's also entirely fair.
Yeah, the Neuroport mounted cyber decks are in there, and there's another cyber net running quick hacking related piece of cyberware that shows up in 2077, and we assume it's in Edgerunners, and we included it because it makes it is needed for the base level quick hacking system to function.
Virtuality.
No, it's not virtuality, but you.
Okay. Sorry, as you know, Netrunner main is just like, of course.
Oh yeah.
You need virtuality to make it work.
Virtuality is built into your Neuroport, which is plugged into your optic nerve.
Right. No, that makes so the only thing that comes to my mind, there's a very brief mention of it in no. The brief mention of it is in the very first sequence of scenes, I should say, in the anime, where they mention something about ice, someone having ice in their system. They say, oh yeah, he's sporting military grade ice, and then they blow out his head after they supposedly crack it, basically. So I'm kind of curious if that's the one.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
That is kind of interesting.
There you go. Even that kind of goes up.
Yeah, fair enough.
I guess with that in mind, because back in my day in 2045, we had to mount our cyber decks in our arm. What the fuck was I supposed to do with it? When I hit the 2070s.
External cyber decks actually still exist. They have some negatives.
Oh.
They're not as they're obviously not as portable, and they don't have their range isn't as good. But on the other hand, you cannot add hardware upgrades to a Neuroport mounted cyber deck.
So maybe the two could work in tandem. Maybe with a couple of tech upgrades, you can make the two work in tandem.
So
or you switch from one to the other you need.
Gremlin ideas here. Anyway,
right.
Don't mind
so,
me.
so not to dive too far down that rabbit hole, but I am kind of curious, because I don't know that it's ever properly expressed in Red what the form factor for a mounted cyber deck is by commissioners. We know it's small enough form factor that you can mount it into a cyber arm. But
I mean,
literally,
you've ever seen someone run around with their phone on their arm? That's it.
That's it. Okay, that's what I figured. So and that form factor hasn't changed at all, aside from there's now a form factor that slots direct into a neuroport. But for physicalized cyber decks, those are like pure physical cyber decks worn on the outside. That's the same. Okay, interesting. All right. No, I'm excited. When this finally comes out and we have some of these answers, we may need to talk with you again to really dive deep into some of it. But I'm very intrigued. I'm very, very curious to see where that goes come release day here.
And not to dig too hard into it, but I really hope whatever this thing is that David Sandevistan is, I hope that thing is the worst thing anybody could put into their system. I hope it is.
David Sandy, I keep comparing it to Excalibur, and when I talk to people about it, it is a unique piece of cyberware. Whatever it began life as, people keep mentioning the Apogee, but whatever it began life as, it's not that now.
It's a monster.
It's been gone through some of the best it's gone through some of the best techs and workshops and unlimited budgets in the world to make it what it is, and it is absolutely unique. And it's not the kind of thing you're going to ever buy at a night market unless your GM is literally Monty Hall. Like literally, you're playing with a host of let's make a deal. And you pick the right door, and then maybe you'll get it. Your team has to be super nice to give it to you, and then you have to be absolutely ready to make a new character if you get it. I'm just gonna say, we saw two people with it in the anime, and neither one of them survived, did they?
No, they did not. They did not. Well, and even before, without spoiling anything, we see the end of the Edgerunners anime itself. We know, we know David takes physical damage from booting it up several times before that.
Nosebleeds,
passing out.
Yeah, we went through several iterations of that thing until we had what we wanted it to be, to reflect both what David does with it to a point. You're not the Flash, but you're darn close. But also the toll it takes on people who have it.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love seeing brutal shit like that show up in my Cyberpunk game.
That's exciting. No,
this makes me very happy.
Yeah, no, it makes me very excited to see how the full rules text on that. I'm deeply excited. So Diamond, I believe we're on your presentation of a question now.
Yeah. So you recently have described the kit as both a starter product and a source book for existing Cyberpunk GMs. Could you help us understand better what it looks like and the differences in your design process for this product compared to something like Tales of the Red, where it's more tailored for existing players?
Sure. So what it looks like is it's about 8.5 by 11 by 2 box. Mm-hmm. You open it up and there's stuff inside of it. Yeah. Okay, no, seriously.
Well played.
When we came up with the initial concept for it, we decided it was going to be 3 products in a single box. Or more specifically, it was going to satisfy 3 audiences. Oh. So the first audience is your new players. Either they've never played Cyberpunk Red, or they've never played a role-playing game. Your class, in this case, it's your classic starter box. And as a classic starter box, it has a rule book, and the rule book gives you enough information to play the game as it is packaged in the box. You'll be able to play the adventure that's in the box, You'll be able to use the pre-generated characters in the box. You'll be able to enjoy, like I said before, 6 to 10 hours of play. At least. We may come up with some additional DLCs that extend the life of that, much like we put Red Chrome Cargo out for the Jumpstart Kit originally. If you're very creative, you might have more. It's missing full care gen, though it does have life path. It's missing character advancement. It has a very, very limited economy. But it does have a simple basic economy. But our stars, like Jumpstart Kit, it's missing the 3 things that make more long-term play possible. It's also a lot cheaper. It's half the cost of the core rulebook. So that's that. Number 2, if you are an existing Cyberpunk Red player, it has new rules for adjusting your game to the 2070s, and this includes role and economy adjustments. There's some very minor adjustments to the roles to essentially deal with the fact that the economy is different in 2070. It's not perfect. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, you can go buy whatever you want whenever you want. Your range of purchase is expanded, and you have options for purchasing things outside your range that don't involve a fixer or attack. And then also we included the new cyberware, new weapons, smart weapons, tech weapons, power weapons, multiple different guns, different pieces of cyberware, a new form of ammunition, no new gear, but new cyberware, including the Neuroport. The Neuroport's a game changer. The Neuroport changed the world of Cyberpunk in the same way smartphones changed our world.
That's actually kind of a good comparison.
Yeah, it's exactly. In our world, we have certain pieces of technology that literally changed the way the world worked. The printing press, the automobile, the airplane, the smartphone. I mean, the telephone in general, the radio, the television. But you look into these pieces of technology that change how society works. The Neuroport is one of those pieces of technology. And they also change significantly what you start off with as a character, as long as you're willing to have it. So all that's in there. So it is a source book for existing players, and you have enough there that you could play in 2077 if you wanted to. It's not everything that you want for 2077, but it's enough that you can easily play a 2077 campaign and keep going.
So
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
The third thing it is we knew a lot of people are coming in. They may play the game, may not play the game, but they want to know the world. People love world lore, which is why when you play Cyberpunk Red, you go and collect all the shards. Sorry, say 2077, you go and collect all the shards. You buy the World of Cyberpunk book. You read the wiki, and this will have not only existing information about the world for people all in one place for people who want that information, but also a lot of new information. You'll learn a lot more about how the 2040s turned into the 2070s eventually. You'll learn more about the development. You learn the fate of a couple of neocorps and where they are in the 2070s. You'll learn more about how Night City evolved. You will learn a lot about David, Lucy, Rebecca, Maine, Dorio, Falco, Pilar, etc. Each of them have a background written by the original writer of the anime. Sat and wrote some very poetic stuff in a lot of cases. And so you'll know more, because the truth is no one gets a lot of detail information about them. You only get to know about the characters as they are now, and in some cases really not that much. The truth is you don't learn almost nothing about Pilar before things happen in the anime. Right. I don't want to spoil, but now you'll have a lot more information about them. So it's a lore book, it's a source book for Red, and it's a all-in-one starter set. It is all 3 of those things.
So to clarify something you'd mentioned as you were going through that, you'd mentioned obviously there aren't rules for care gen in the box, but because this is built off of Red, do you foresee care gen, whether through the economics of, you know, like your starting budget, for example, or advancement in the way that IP is handled. Do you foresee that changing when the full 70 rules comes out, or are you just saying, like, if you have the core rule book, like, these are the rules, and as long as you have those, you could technically care gen within 77 or the 70s era of Cyberpunk?
Yeah, no, you could take this and you could take the red rule book and you could play 77, no changes whatsoever.
Okay.
I don't see, if and when we do a 77 book, I don't see it changing care gen in any significant way. The goal will be for them to be absolutely and completely 100% compatible.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, because that was the thing. I was like, wait, but we do have those rules. They're just in the core rule book. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
So yeah, well, so to put it this way, if you wanted to play the jacket as part of a larger 77 Cyberpunk Red set in 77 campaign, you could do that. This adventure, you could pull it right out. You could pull that one book out of the box and play that adventure with the rules presented in the box as a supplement to the rules in the core rulebook for Cyberpunk Red. There's nothing in that adventure that requires something really specific or unusual. So your GM may need to adjust the bad guys' difficulty levels if you're a seriously hardened crew or if you have a lot of IP, but that's nothing new.
Right. Yeah. Diamond and I are both intimately familiar with what that looks like.
Yeah.
We both run with pretty hardened crews at this point. So, but yeah, that was some
linear frame.
Yeah. Solo linear frame martial arts. So the next question that I had here. So obviously we definitely still have at least a couple weeks before the kit actually comes out, with pre-orders starting, based on what Rob was saying yesterday, sometime next week, which is still mind-blowing. I'm not quite over that yet. But looking toward the future for just a moment, because you did just mention, you know, there may be some extras to extend. Huh?
Okay. Let's look at the future.
Yeah, into the future. Right. So looking at that for a moment, are there any specific elements of maybe like what you initially envisioned for the kit, or ideas or concepts you had planned for the kit, that as the process to make it kind of moved forward, they were either cut out, similar to like stuff you would have put in maybe a plus DLC for any of the other source book stuff that you've released so far? Is there any stuff that was cut for that, or, you know, you had to say, well, we can't really fit this in here now, so we'll delay that to some kind of later release, whether that's a world book or something else later down the road?
Only one thing got cut. We have blocks, rule stat blocks for all the main characters in the anime. All of David/Main's crew, we have stat blocks for them all. And they got cut because the amount of text we got from CDPR on their backgrounds, the idea was we'd see a picture, we'd see a background, we'd see a stat block, much like in Danger God Dossier.
Sure.
And they gave us a lot more, and we had a choice. We could either cut the background material or we could cut the stat blocks, and we chose to cut the stat blocks. Those stat blocks will most likely appear in a DLC down the road. So they will be there. Honestly, we did the stat blocks before we got the backgrounds, so there will be some adjustments already, because we learned some things about those characters we didn't know and didn't account for when writing them up. And so we'll adjust, but those will be in a DLC down the road. Now I'll say all the stat blocks in the in this mission kit are designed with the mission kit in mind. And one of the things we did is, rather than saying, if you go, this, they have this, we wrote out, they have this does this, where it was never required. For example, every NPC stat block, if they have a weapon that's a ranged weapon, it has their range table right under the weapon in the stat block itself.
That's really cool.
So in some cases, you're going to want to be careful if you're bringing that into straight red, because you're going to go, oh, well, I just have to read this. But sometimes we abbreviate it, or we may have left a few things out, or we do something like we said, I think I said important cyberware. And it was only the cyberware that mattered to the gameplay of what they were doing at the time. And it may not include other cyberware that you think the character may have. So when pulling them into red, just be aware you may want to expand on them. But the Edgerunners characters, David and Nain and so forth, will be done the same way. So we're probably not going to account for all of David's cyberware, because David and Nain both obviously have a lot of cyberware, but we'll account for the major things we think will come into play in a standard encounter.
Okay, very interesting. So then, at this point though, then we aren't sure though. You're saying you're not sure when those blocks will see light of day quite yet.
I'm not going to make any promises.
Okay.
I have some ideas, but I don't want to make any promises until I know I can make it happen.
Fair enough.
And one last thing.
Sure.
This is so appropriate that Diamond asks this one, because she's definitely got more of this than I have.
Because I know both Emmerron and I, you've probably been asked half a dozen times every week. Me, surprisingly, is just like, well, you seem to know a thing or two, Diamond. Wait, when Kit coming out? Do we have any tighter estimate on when the release date is? I hope you say no. I hope you do.
Yeah.
When it's ready.
When it's ready. Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. It's
fair.
Out when it's ready.
Yeah.
Please stop asking.
The answer is I have a list of things I can't talk about, and one of those is that thing. It's only because release dates have a notorious habit of slipping, and we'd rather not slip if we can't help it. So if we can help it, we're going to try that. So also, it's not my news to share; it's Rob's. So we'll see what Rob has to say when Rob says it.
That is entirely fair. We knew that our audiences would, or more accurately, Diamond's audience would probably take umbrage with us not asking if we didn't say anything. Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. It'll be ready when it's ready. And we've had sit down with Jay Gray. Of course, again, Jay, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us again over the Edgerunners Mission Kit. We hope to have you back soon. I don't know, maybe down the road for whenever Forlorn Hope is coming down the pipe, probably either later this year or next year. Who knows?
It's this year.
It's busy. It is this year. Okay.
Okay.
But at some point, we're also going to need to talk with your crew about some other stuff that's coming out as well.
Yeah.
Especially with Shadow Scar coming up.
Yeah, I know both of us are very excited about Shadow Scar. So before we go, did you have any last minute things you wanted to say or present that we didn't kind of cover in the other time that we've given the interview today? Or
what you mentioned Shadow Scar. So if you have a store nearby that's doing free RPG Day this upcoming free RPG Day, I think it's in July.
June 22nd, I believe.
Even better. If in June, go down there. You'll have the quick start for Shadow Scar. It'll be our first real show off of it. It'll be some rules, some lore, an adventure you can play, all self-contained. Please grab a copy, play it, and enjoy. Be ready for the starter box, which will come out in August, and the core rulebook, hopefully, towards the end of the year.
I'm very excited.
And we're looking forward to that. It's our first new original world in quite some time, and we're really looking forward to sharing it with everybody.
No, thank you again for your time today, Jay. We're looking forward to everything coming up in the future here. Mission Kit most immediately, but definitely there's plenty more from RTG that we're looking forward to later in the year. So, but yeah, thank you again for your time today. And from us over at Wireheads to the audience, we hope all of you have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you're in the world. Stay healthy, stay safe. And until next time, peace, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.